650-foot car ship that was running on its starboard side.
You don't think a cargo ship's going to roll. Sure enough, as we started listening, we realized that it was a cargo ship and got on scene.
Our engines reported within the ship's hull. We have no access to this point.
Once we got on scene, every vision that we had in our head was completely different.
Our goal was to try to just pluck as many people off that we could see visibly.
Once I got down onto the ship and disconnected from the hoist hook, everything around you was black because it was so dark. I realized once I was there for a second, the ship is still moving.
Watch your descent, roger descent, watch your descent. Roger, thank you.
In addition to the ship being listing, it was evident to us that there was fires burning on board as well.
And the 4-4 is off-flow left. Correct, we're going to fly out forward.
I'm getting weaved between cables and stanchions and poles and,
A little bit of swing.
and railings and stuff that are all poking out, trying to impale me, essentially.
The wall is now the floor. The floor is now the wall. And when you look through the doorway into the bridge of the ship, you can see all the way down to the water.
There was no coming back up. There was no not going down and getting those two people out of the pilot house. There was no not finding the people that were injured to get them up off that deck.
Bring us over a survivor inside the cabin.
So you just sort of go out and get it done however it needs to get done.
It was honestly a miracle that those 4 guys survived, and it was such a relief to know that all of our efforts, like, we got them all out.
Woo! Yeah!
I think I'm safe to speak for everybody here. You know, this is why we joined. That's what we want to see.
Thank you for joining us for this tribute to the heroic actions of Coast Guard members who rescued crew members stranded aboard a capsized cargo ship. Tonight, we hear about that rescue from the men who carried it out for the first time.
AST-1, Nathan Newberg.
AST-1, Eric Young.
Lieutenant Jeb Slick.
AST-1, Michael Bearsky.
AMT-2, Jared Blitz.
AET-2, Hayden Kelly.
AMT-3, Matthew Baker.
Lieutenant Rob Mineo. I was the aircraft commander of the first aircraft on scene.
When the call came in, what was your first thought?
It was very hard to believe because we were told the initial reports were 25 people in the water, and I thought maybe this can't be correct.
I thought they were probably mistaken, and then wasn't thinking cargo ship at all. I was thinking maybe booze cruise or something like that. And as we started listening more and more, because you don't think a cargo ship's going to roll.
About 10 minutes later, when we talked to them again, they said they were still on the boat. It kind of came to the realization of there's going to be a cargo ship on its side wherever we go to.
One of the aircraft took a mass casualty raft in order to throw that out if there was a bunch of people in the water. And the second aircraft, we brought down a medical litter in case there's any kind of injuries that we weren't sure about.
The flight down is more just planning ahead, like what we're going to need, what we might see, what we're going to need, what the conditions were on scene, what we're going to see, stuff like that.
We thought we were going to be doing a lot of swimming that night. So once we got on scene, every vision that we had in our head was completely different.
At the time, I just mentally prepared myself for whatever we may find, and when we arrived on scene, essentially the cargo ship rolling over almost gave us an urban environment to hoist to.
You can train and train and train and train, but there's nothing like the real thing. What was that experience like, being in that environment, realizing this is real life, this is not training, and you had to go?
I mean, you kind of just rely on that training. You just put one foot in front of the other, you know exactly what you're supposed to do, and you kind of just go into autopilot. I've done vertical rescues off of mountains and stuff, but even the trees are still growing up and down. So you're still getting put in between things versus I'm getting weaved between cables and stanchions and poles and railings and stuff that are all poking out, trying to impale me, essentially.
To the average person, explain some of the challenges that you faced as pilot hovering that aircraft low so that you could hoist those people up.
The first thing when you see a ship of that size on its side is you're like, wow, this is just like a movie kind of, but you have a first row seat to it. I think the first challenge was as we showed up, the communications with the boats that were on scene. It was a little chaotic. We could hear it probably about 5 miles before we got there. And I think establishing, some communication with them to figure out, okay, cool, we have the boat, we know exactly where the boat's at, but where are the people on that boat that we can help out.
This night was just getting started for Coast Guard members. Lowering swimmers to the deck of the ship was the next step, a tough task that required teamwork and ingenuity.
I just kind of took a quick survey of what I had around me, and it was either rubber mats off the floor that had fallen or a fire hose.
Quickly, crews recognized what they had, a capsized cargo ship in the middle of the night with limited time to get to people on board. Crews had to get to a captain and a pilot stuck on the bridge of the ship and other survivors elsewhere. This rescue was anything but ordinary. So you went down to the ship. What do you do as you get down to the level of the ship?
When they lowered me down to the ship, I can't say enough great things about my crew. They piloted. Pilots were great. Nice and steady. The flight mechanic put me down in a perfect spot. But what we were most concerned about was how to get me to the two people that we were going to try to rescue off of there.
Our goal was to try to just pluck as many people off that we could see visibly, and then start worrying about people that might be inside afterwards.
Really, once we figure out where a person is at, that's when the crew starts to take a look at, okay, what are the hazards? Where do we think we can hoist from? What am I worried about with the swimmer? Are we going to get them tangled up in any of the deck railing, the superstructure, and then just really trying to, the flight mech is super huge and making sure that we're not all over the place. Like whatever small controlled movement you're making at 150 feet is going to be a lot of oscillation for the swimmer down low. So
I'm about to say, at the end of the day, you're also flying the helicopter, that's after a long list of things that you're also paying attention to.
Yes, and there's a lot of radio chatter, a lot of crosstalk between all positions in the aircraft.
No, not yet. Okay. It looks like he gave me the up signal. Okay.
What's your internal clock like when you're in that search and rescue? Are you thinking we need to get this done in 30 minutes, an hour? Are you even thinking about that?
That's a really difficult decision to make. In addition to the ship being listing, it was evident to us that there was fires burning on board as well. There's a decent amount of smoke, and through our night vision goggles, we were able to pick up the infrared, signature coming off those fires that were burning inside. So you got that run in the back of your head. We're faced with this very complex geometry problem of how are you going to get these guys out of this suspended room.
It's going to be quicker. Probably safer to take one quicker.
They can't really move, and we didn't really know how to get to them with our traditional techniques that we know. So we kind of came together as a crew and made the difficult decision for him to actually leave the helicopter and completely disconnect.
Once I got down onto the ship and disconnected from the hoist hook, everything around you was black because it was so dark, and I thought I was just having a hard time finding my reference, like kind of feeling off balance. But I realized once I was there for a second, the ship is still moving, like it's still turning over.
Kind of in the back of your mind, you're also wondering, like, at what point is this thing going to hit its breaking point and continue to roll the rest of the way over with me on it, with it still on the hook, bring the whole helicopter down or whatever.
And swimmers on deck.
What is the tipping point? We don't know. And that was definitely a risk that all these guys were willing to stomach that, and especially these two guys in the middle here kind of put the skin in the game and go down there and touch these folks.
The wall is now the floor. The floor is now the wall. And when you look through the doorway into the bridge of the ship, you can see all the way down to the water, and it's a good roughly about 100 feet down. So you see all the debris down at the bottom that fell, chairs, mats, anything that wasn't bolted down. So alarms are going off, so you have the red lights flashing. Luckily the pilots did a great job at holding a hover and getting the searchlight in there, so I had a good light source to work off of. It's very dark, very disorienting, and when you're on the outside of the ship looking in, it's like a trap door. Like there's a hole all the way to the bottom.
Where the survivor was at, there was a doorway as well, and then a wall. And so he had to put me in a spot where I can straddle the doorway with enough slack to where, if for whatever reason I slip, I don't slip too far and hurt myself. At the same time, allow enough slack to where I can move and function and get the survivor hooked up.
It was so loud that I ended up rappelling down the fire hose into the bridge to make contact with the the captain and the harbor pilot. I just kind of took a quick survey of what I had around me, and it was either rubber mats off the floor that had fallen or a fire hose hanging from the side outside the bridge. And with the harbor pilot's help, we were able to convince the captain, like, hey, you need to come off of the ship now.
Were you surprised that there was some resistance from the captain, that he wanted to stay back until the rest of the crew was off?
It wasn't really that big of a surprise because, I mean, he's caring for his crew just like any of us would care for ours. Like, he doesn't want to leave anybody behind. So it was a little bit of a convincing, but I did eventually tell him, like, all right, this is your chance to get off. We've got to go now, and we need your help to know where to get these guys from the inside.
Survivor inside the cabin. Roger.
When they did finally get up on the helicopter and you got them out, what was that sense of relief like?
Just being able to know that the two guys that we went down to get off the ship were safe and off of the treacherous environment they were in is a huge relief. But you kind of, it's short-lived, because when I got the captain off and we hoisted back into the helicopter, we were completely out of gas, so we had to go back to the airport right away. So landing and knowing that, all right, let's refuel quickly and get back out there to do whatever we can, it's great, but you have, like, it's a small victory, but it's not over. So you can't dwell on that. You know it's a success, and you move past it and focus on the next thing that you have to do.
The next thing was getting the 4 trapped crew members off the ship. The situation was dire. Fires raged inside the car carrier.
There was still just that feeling of helplessness that you want to do something for the 4 that are still trapped there.
The captain gave a good idea of where those crew members were so others could develop plans to get to them. Finding them in the capsized ship was another thing, though. Hopeless is one way these men felt when they left and realized they had done all they could do the night the boat capsized. A third crew went down the next day to begin the process of getting to the men still stuck inside the ship.
I think all of us can echo that there was definitely a feeling of kind of helplessness with those last 4 guys. And, you know, we have these skills and we have these tools here, and we reached the end of the capabilities of what we, as, you know, pilots and aircrew, were able to do to help these folks out. You know, wake up the next morning and these guys are delivering, you know, thousands of pounds of drilling gear.
So when we were discussing that as a crew, you don't just land on the side of a ship without talking about a little bit how strong is the side of the ship? Can it take the weight? Do we need to just go light on the wheels?
Considering that there was however many vehicles all full of fuel and how bad the fires were before, you know, all you see is the evidence of. And when we wound up assessing the side of the ship and we're doing circles around it, again, excellent communication, we were able to identify a portion of it that looked like it was stable. And when we actually did wind up going down to land, we did go light on the skids before we went down to see if there was any deflection.
Discussing how much time we could shave off by landing on the side of the boat and carrying the stuff off, as opposed to trying to hoist it up and down over multiple hoists. It was the most efficient way to go. So as a crew, we discussed that as keeping it open as an option, but let's talk to the salvage crew first, those guys that have that kind of technical know-how, to know how strong the side of the boat was. They had zero concerns, so we're like, that's a go-ahead for us.
Rescue crews worked quickly and creatively to find the 4 missing crew members inside the ship. Miraculously, they pulled all 4 from the ship the day after it capsized. Despite the scorching heat inside and a lack of oxygen, food, and water, all 4 crew members survived. What kind of feeling was that when you realized we did it?
When I first saw that on the news, like, it was just an overwhelming sense of relief. I think even that morning, when we knew that we had rescued everyone off the ship that we had the capability of rescuing, there was still just that feeling of helplessness that you want to do something for the 4 that are still trapped there, just because the conditions seem so dire.
The fact that everyone was taken off the ship alive is a miracle. Like, when we departed scene, seeing the fires rage so hard that it melted through the side of the ship, and those guys were down 12 decks underneath, knowing all that, it was honestly a miracle that those 4 guys survived, and it was such a relief to know that all of our efforts, like, we got them all out.
When you saw the picture, one of the commanders said it was his most satisfying day in the Coast Guard, that guy coming out of the ship with his hands up. What did you think when you saw that last guy come through that square cut out of the ship?
Proud to be a part of that entire evolution, not just my part, but of something that it's kind of significant to be a part of something that big, and that it wasn't just one effort, but it was a concerted effort of multiple agencies, multiple departments, fire departments, the river pilots that were on scene, salvage teams. It was pretty neat to be a part of something that big.
I was pretty much in disbelief, but you know, it was a huge satisfaction, and I think I'm safe to speak for everybody here. You know, this is why we joined. That's what we want to see.
So what did these Coast Guard members learn from this rescue?
I learned that I can think a lot faster than I thought I could.
More from them when we come back. From realizing the importance of teamwork to learning that you really are calm under pressure, these heroes tell me they learned a lot about themselves that night. They take those lessons into each and every search and rescue they go to.
As an aircraft commander, you make the ultimate decision, but you're not formulating the method or the decision. Like, you have to work as a team. And it was just inspiring that, like, the varying experience levels, you come together in the most unique circumstances, and you can build an effective rescue plan.
This was a huge success because of all the different people and all the different people doing their jobs. Like, everybody had their small part, and it's really eye-opening that without one part of that whole rescue, the results could have been a lot different and a lot worse. So just the fact that we had the boats working together, the helicopters, all the crews, like, it just solidified to me that if I do my small part, they'll do theirs, and we can really make things happen.
Like, your whole career, you're always, like, you want to be that guy that gets called to be put on the spot for that big SAR case. And when it actually happens, it's one, really surreal, and actually really, really humbling. When it's all said and done, you look back at it, like you think of the heroism or whatever leading up to, but afterwards it's just like, wow, I just feel really humbled to be a part of something that required a lot of effort and ingenuity and creative problem solving, and I was just a small part of that. Kind of puts you in your place. It was really neat.
Even after almost 19 years in the Coast Guard, I still want to be part of the action, even a small part. So it was, I still enjoy being part of this rescue machine and working with these people.
The stories of what, you know, Petty Officer Newberg and Petty Officer Young and Kelly and Blitz and what they all did the night before, and what I got to be a part of, was tremendous. I mean, the entire organization, between us, the collaboration with an excellent salvage team who was able to absolutely, you know, instrumental in saving those last 4 crew members' lives. It just, you know, made me well with pride. The
pride of being a part of such a great group of people in this organization, that nobody can do the job on their own, but we train so well and work so well together that as a team, we're able to do something that not a lot of people can do. It was a humbling experience just to be a part of something like that with folks like this.
Calm under pressure. It's one of those things that, I mean, training really helps with it, but you know you can make the right decisions because you've done it before. You can trust the people around you, and just not stressing over big things make it easier to do the small things well.
And both Nate and Eric handled the case just like that, because there was no coming back up. There was no not going down and getting those 2 people out of the pilot house. There was no not finding the people that were injured to get them up off that deck, language barrier or not. So you just sort of go out and get it done however it needs to get done. And we are given the freedom to do that, to kind of act on our own and think open-mindedly and outside of the box.
If this rescue was anything other than heroic, it was out of the box. The rescue effort has led to some recognition for the crews involved. Nathan Newberg was named the USO Coast Guardsman of the Year. The Admiral even gave him a special promotion. All 6 men who went down the night the ship capsized got life-saving medals as well. Thank you for joining us for this WTOC special. We hope you enjoyed it.